Hello and welcome to the Sheriff's Roundup, recapping the third quarter of 2021. I'm Sheriff Bill Brown, and this time I'm coming to you from the Sheriff's Office Lompoc Substation. We are excited to share what we have been working on over the past few months. We begin this edition of the Roundup with an update on the persistent COVID-19 pandemic. During our last edition of the Roundup, we shared with you our prevention and mitigation plans for COVID response in the jail. Since then, the staff at the main jail have continued their diligent efforts to keep COVID out of our jail through the consistent use of PPE, as well as regular testing of staff members. In August, staff at the main jail detected a COVID outbreak in the South Module. Through contact tracing, testing, and monitoring, a total of 90 infected inmates were detected during this outbreak. Controlling and monitoring all of these COVID-positive inmates required a coordinated effort by a team of teams that included our jail staff, our WellPath healthcare partners, the Santa Barbara County Department of Public Health, and the California Department of Public Health. Here to tell you about how all of these agencies worked together to care for the health and safety of our inmate population is Custody Lieutenant Anthony Espinoza.
As the sheriff mentioned, there were 90 cases associated with this outbreak. The first cases were identified in South Tank, which later led to additional cases in South Dorm. We immediately began to work with public health. They provided assistance in testing supplies and also in providing staff resources to assist WellPath with testing. It becomes a challenge as the positive cases continue to grow to break down these groups and cohorts into the smallest possible. Preferably, it'd be a cohort of one. Unfortunately, with our current restrictions, that's not available. We attempt to make cohorts of two, sometimes three, but the intent of cohorting is to limit the spread or slow down the spread of the infection. During this pandemic, we faced many challenges. First of all, with our classification unit, who consistently has to reorganize the facility to accommodate for these small cohorts and also maintain the day-to-day operations in the facility. Along with WellPath, there's continued monitoring, additional monitoring that WellPath has to perform as well as their daily tasks, additional testing that puts a strain on their staff. And then just the strain to custody staff as they have to do more checks and they just have to make sure these individuals are not getting sick and they're staying healthy. Through this pandemic, custody has continued to rise to these challenges and work through many different changing situations. So the credit needs to be given to our line staff and our WellPath line staff who just continue to come in day to day and do their work. So kudos to our custody staff and WellPath who are in the facility working day to day through this pandemic.
Thank you, Lieutenant Espinoza, for your tireless efforts throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. I also want to thank all of our custody staff who have worked so diligently through this outbreak to protect the safety and the health of our inmates. Corrections is an already challenging career, and this added layer of risk has made their jobs all the more dangerous and honorable. To all of our custody staff, I say thank you for continuing to show up and perform your duties with the utmost professionalism. While the jail staff have been working to protect our inmates, patrol deputies and detectives have been as busy as ever, protecting our communities and tackling complex investigations into serious crimes. On June 24, 2021, detectives served a search warrant at Kate School, a boarding school in the Carpinteria area. The warrant was part of an investigation into sexual abuse allegations that detectives began investigating in April. As detectives worked on their investigation into the initial allegations, they became aware that there were likely additional survivors of abuse. The Sheriff's Office reached out to the community to make them aware of our investigation and encourage any additional victims to come forward. The suspect, 27-year-old DeJohn James, was identified as a suspect in a similar case in Boulder, Colorado. He was arrested in Colorado and is currently in the court process to answer for his charges there. The Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office investigation remains ongoing. On July 15, 2021, Sheriff's detectives began their investigation into a homicide in the 600 block of North La Cumbre Road.
I did see him the day before. He was just walking by. We made eye contact and he looked just kind of upset or distraught.
Detectives ultimately arrested 29-year-old Casey Tolivar of Santa Barbara for the murder of his 72-year-old father, Bradley Tolivar. This investigation has since been concluded and turned over to the District Attorney's Office for prosecution. Our last featured case is a burglary of a gun dealership in Goleta. On August 12, 2021, deputies responded to the 5700 block of Hollister Avenue, where they learned that numerous firearms had been stolen and that the suspect likely gained entry through a large hole made in the side of the building. Detectives have since worked closely with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which has taken the lead in this investigation. Each of these cases required extensive investigation and follow-up that our staff have diligently conducted behind the scenes. These cases will continue to unfold as they work their way through the criminal justice system in our local courts. Next, I want to introduce the newest member of the Sheriff's executive team and our agency's first civilian chief. I appointed Robert Bob Gonzalez to the position of Chief Administrative Officer on September 6, 2021. The CAO is an executive leader responsible for the oversight of our support services branch, which includes the financial services and operations support divisions. Prior to his work with the Sheriff's Office, Bob Gonzalez had served as Interim Director of Public Safety at Mount San Antonio Community College, and he was the Police Chief of the City of Santa Paula Police Department. Bob also served on the Santa Paula Elementary School District Board of Trustees, the Santa Paula Union High School District Board of Trustees, the Ventura County Community College Board of Trustees, and the Santa Paula City Council. Since his appointment a short time ago, Chief Gonzalez has hit the ground running where, amongst a mountain of other responsibilities, he is an integral part of our agency's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. His duties include the tracking of employee vaccination status and ensuring that our agency meets the continually evolving county, state, and federal regulations in our response to the pandemic. While Sheriff's employees worked to keep the peace in Santa Barbara County, El Dorado County grappled with the devastating Caldor fire that started on August 14, 2021. The Caldor fire exploded in size on August 16, when high winds spread the fire to 6,500 acres. By the following day, the fire had reached 30,000 acres as emergency crews worked around the clock. Santa Barbara County Sheriff's deputies and communications dispatchers were requested by El Dorado County through the State of California Governor's Office of Emergency Management. Lieutenant Brad Welsh responded to this mutual aid request and is here to share with you what our deputies and dispatchers experienced during their deployment to the Caldor fire.
So the call from Cal OES from mutual aid from Santa Barbara County Region 1A came in on August 31st. Lieutenant Steve Johnson, who's also a manager with the Mobile Field Force, deployed with 20 sheriff's deputies and supervisory team up to the Caldor fire on September 1st. And we also went up with members of the Santa Barbara Police Department as well as the San Luis County Sheriff's Office. Their main objective at that time was to conduct proactive patrols of the evacuated areas. The fire was very active during that first week when our team was up there, and they encountered a large amount of looters. They made close to 10 arrests for residential burglary, looting, possession of firearms, and staying within the emergency zone. They were the only agency from mutual aid that made proactive arrests, and the citizens were very thankful for our service. On September 5th, I led a group of 7 deputies up to Lake Tahoe to replace some of the folks from our agency that needed to come back. And so we ended up also doing proactive patrols of the evacuated areas. We stayed an additional week, and we helped transition a lot of the residents back into their homes when their areas were no longer in an evacuated area, and we stayed there until September 14th. So in Santa Barbara County, we've had to reach out and ask for mutual aid multiple times through our natural disasters, to include our forest fires and the 1/9 debris flow. So it's nice for us as a sheriff's office to give back to the agencies that have helped us out through our trying times. And so it was a pleasure and a blessing for us to go up and help El Dorado County.
Thank you, Lieutenant Welsh, for leading this exemplary group of deputies and dispatchers who represented us so well in El Dorado County. September 11th is a day that resonates with our entire nation as we collectively reflect on the tragic events of that day and the countless acts of bravery and sacrifice in the days that followed. This year, on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office was honored to join in the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Teen Court Program's Flag of Honor Across America Memorial. This ceremony was one of 60 nationwide events where communities joined together to remember the 2,983 women, men, and children who lost their lives on September 11, 2001, and in the February 26, 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
The terrorists had hoped to bring the American people to our knees. Instead, they brought us to our feet.
During the ceremony, members of the CADA Teen Court Program presented the county with the official 9/11 Flag of Honor, which includes the names of all victims who lost their lives on these two tragic days. Each of the 9/11 flags were previously flown at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, located on the sacred ground where the Twin Towers once stood. This was the largest nationally coordinated 9/11 Day project in America in remembrance of 9/11's 20th anniversary. Thank you to everyone who joined us in the beautiful Sunken Gardens as we paid tribute to those who lost their lives and in doing so, kept their memory alive. In September, the Sheriff's Office and Department of Behavioral Wellness shared a new video that highlights the work of our co-response teams. In case you missed it, I wanted to share this informative video with you here.
3414 with 30, man associated with the Honda Fit.
The Sheriff's Office and the Department of Behavioral Wellness have partnered up to respond to mental health crises in an innovative way. We currently have 3 mental health co-response teams, which includes a CIT deputy, so a deputy that's trained in crisis intervention, and a mobile crisis clinician, responding together in an unmarked vehicle to mental health crisis calls with the objective of de-escalating the situation and diverting the person from the criminal justice system if and when it is safe and appropriate to do so. We often get calls at the Sheriff's Office for folks that are in a mental health crisis because there's nowhere else to call or they feel like there's nowhere else to go.
One of the advantages of our co-response program is it allows myself and my clinical partner to have a working relationship. She has obviously the clinical experience that she brings to each call, whereas my role is primarily focused on public safety as well as ensuring that she remains safe throughout the call. Are you going to want to talk to him?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
want to ask him a couple of questions.
That call was initially reported as a disturbance call. However, one of the involved parties was someone who we've had some history with before, and we know that they suffer from mental illness and have been erratic and violent in the past. So my partner and I decided to go and see if we could help patrol.
The deputies in Santa Barbara are amazing because they're always first and foremost concerned about our safety and the safety of the community.
One of the benefits of co-response is that they work as a team. So oftentimes when they get on scene, the CIT trained deputy is working with the individual, helping to de-escalate them, while the clinician's able to get a better clinical picture of the entire situation, maybe get some collateral information, look up information in the electronic health record, so they're better able to get the individual the best services they need in that moment.
Once we got there, we learned that he had been following school children around as they're getting on the bus. And so based on what information we got today, my partner determined that he needed to go on a 5150 hold to have that 72-hour psychiatric evaluation at the hospital. This was an example of why we like having the clinicians come with us in the vehicle, is it allows us to get that mental health provider on scene very rapidly.
Prior to the co-response program, if while on scene that deputy determined that the person met criteria for a psychiatric detention or a 5150 because they were either a danger to themselves, a danger to others, or gravely disabled, they would call our partners over at the Department of Behavioral Wellness and ask for them to arrive on scene.
That can be a very time-consuming process. It can add easily an hour to an hour and a half to the call.
And so we thought there was a way that we could do this better. And the way that we could do this better was pairing behavioral wellness clinicians with law enforcement deputies that have specialized experience and training in mental health response, working together to arrive to the scene to help that person.
And a lot of times that's actually safer, because if a person is acting erratically and violently, The longer we wait around before we make that decision, the more dangerous it becomes.
As an example, say there's somebody who is feeling suicidal. While the deputy is en route to the call, gathering information from the radio, the clinician is looking up the history of that person, and so that eliminates time where that person would have been waiting for a response. Now we're able to arrive to the scene much quicker and address the clinical issues much quicker.
It's extremely helpful having that partner right then and there with you, and I think it's working out really well. We're learning a lot from each other. She's an essential tool to my ability to do my job.
The co-response team does follow up on a lot of the mental health calls that patrol deputies or even the CIT deputies may go out on, and that's been really beneficial to engage the individual sometimes after they've been in crisis.
Hello, my name's Deputy Kirk. This is my partner. We're part of the co-response team.
Sometimes initially there may be a little bit of fear about why a cop is at the door.
2 weeks ago he looked forward to the shot, but right now he's super paranoid and won't do anything.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
You guys might already have this is the access line. You can give that to him.
Okay.
If anything else comes up, be happy to come back and talk to him.
Once they realize that this is a co-response team that's there to help them and provide some resources and other information, they feel a lot better about it, and they're actually appreciative that the team showed up and is there to help them.
Every single interaction I've ever had with the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office has been thoroughly professional.
Outstanding.
You guys are great.
It's good to hear. I like hearing that.
Thank you.
So in 2018, we started our pilot program, and we had our CIT deputy and a caseworker from behavioral wellness 1 day every other week responding to mental health calls. And we started to gain a lot of traction. We got a lot of good feedback from NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, who works directly with families of people that are experiencing these crises. So 1 day every other week turned into 4 days a week, and that pilot continued until the Sheriff's Office and the Department of Behavioral Wellness were able to secure grant funding to not just continue this team full-time, but to expand the unit and have 3 separate co-response teams, 2 of which work in South County, and then our North County mental health co-response team covers Santa Maria and also covers West County, including Buellton, San Ynez, and Solvang.
So what we find with doing these follow-ups, it's lowered the number of calls and allowed deputies more time to do other things instead of responding to these. So we give it the attention that it needs, and it lowers the amount of times deputies have to go out there. So it's been very effective.
In the year 2020, the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office had a total of about 3,000 mental health crisis calls. Out of those 3,000 mental health crisis calls, a co-response team covered about 1,600, which is about 54% of all crisis calls for the county. Out of those 1,600 calls, only 11 persons went to jail. And so what the teams did with the rest of that group that they were working with is figured it out. And sometimes that meant a safety plan. Sometimes that meant taking that person to their clinician they were already set up with. Sometimes that meant a psychiatric hospitalization. And sometimes that just meant talking for a little while.
That call initially started as a family disturbance, but one of the individuals involved is someone we've had several interactions with before, who suffers from chronic mental illness. Once we got there, we found that during some sort of disagreement, she threw a glass bottle at a juvenile who was on scene, striking the juvenile. And so based on her history of mental illness, her erratic behavior, and assaulting a juvenile, my partner decided to place her on a 5150 hold, which means we're going to take her to the hospital for a 72-hour psychiatric evaluation.
What we have found is that oftentimes the folks in mental health crisis are not needing necessarily to go to jail, but are needing immediate support and treatment.
I think expanding this program would be a huge benefit to the community. I've had a number of department members and especially supervisors have commented to me that they very much appreciate having a CIT team to respond to these mental health emergencies, and that during the times when we're not available, that it's much more challenging, much more time consuming to resolve these crises.
We see, as much of the nation is seeing, an increase in the volume and acuity of mental health crises. A lot of that has to do with COVID. A lot of that has to do with just the increase in stress that people are dealing with in their daily lives. And a lot of that has to do also with the lack of behavioral health resources that we're seeing nationwide, not just in Santa Barbara County. So if 3 teams were able to take care of 54% of all of our calls, imagine what we could do if we have 24/7 coverage.
The beauty of this partnership is that mental health is real, and law enforcement is doing the very best they can with the tools that they have to try to help folks. But I think the partnership and learning how to trust each other and knowing that at the end of the day, the goal of, the sheriffs in Santa Barbara, what I've learned, and working with all of them is that they truly care. And they truly care about the people and they truly care about the community. So I'm really honored to have the opportunity to work with these men and women every day.
The Sheriff's Office presented this video and additional information to the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors on October 19, 2021. During that presentation, we provided the Sheriff's Office and Behavioral Wellness County Co-Response 2020 quantitative and qualitative data and outcomes review.
Perhaps the most valuable statistic is the number of arrests related to the number of responses from the co-response team. So less than 1%. The calls that the co-response team handled in 2020 ended with a community member going to jail. Approximately 18% of the individual persons encountered by co-response had an arrest in 2020. So it means that when co-response is engaged, that person is less likely to go to jail.
Dr. Sherilyn Lee and I also presented on our co-response program and our employee wellness initiatives at the Words to Deeds conference, hosted by the California Forensic Mental Health Association. The Sheriff's Office is proud of our behavioral science unit and the work we are doing, especially our partnership with Behavioral Wellness in bringing the valuable co-response program to the people of Santa Barbara County. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Sheriff's Roundup. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting us as we protect your safety.